Hello, ladies, and welcome. Today I'm going to be reading from the book The Four Agreements, A Practical Guide to Self Mastery by Don Miguel Ruiz. This book is one of the classics. It was written back in 1952, and I received a request to read this book, so I'm going to share it here on the channel. I will read all four agreements, but I will break it up into four different videos. And I'm not going to read the entire chapters, but I'm going to touch on some things that I think are important and that relate very much to us as women. So, if you're not familiar with the four agreements, the book is about agreements that we've made with ourselves and how they affect our lives every day through the relationships we have, the thoughts we have, and how we feel about ourselves and others. In the introduction, the author mentions how when someone abuses themselves, they can tolerate being beat up, humiliated, and treated like dirt. And it's because they've made an agreement with the belief that this is the treatment that they deserve. So the first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. And he talks about in the book how the things that we speak are like spells that we cast and the power of the word. For example, sometimes when someone may be telling you something, an idea that they have or something that they're going to do, something that they've done, and you give your opinion without really thinking and you say something negative to that person, that's when you're not being impeccable with your word. You just spoke. For example, if you tell someone that you have a relative that is thinking of joining the military and the person responds, "That's not a good idea because they could die." Well, was that really what that person needed to hear when they shared that? Absolutely not. So sometimes it's just about keeping your opinion to yourself and not speaking on anything if you don't have all of the information and just being an ear. I'm going to focus on the section in the book here where he talks about gossip because, like I said, I try to find things that are really relative to, women on this channel. And we all know that gossip is definitely one of them, not just women, men too. But I just thought that this would be interesting to read. So I'm going to read on page 305 where he begins to talk about gossip. So, looking at everyday human interactions, imagine how many times we cast spells on each other with our word. Over time, this interaction has become the worst form of black magic, and we call it gossip. Gossip is black magic at its very worst because it is pure poison. We learned how to gossip by agreement. When we were children, we heard the adults around us gossiping all the time, openly giving their opinions about other people. They even had opinions about people they didn't know. Emotional poison was transferred along with the opinions, and we learned this as the normal way to communicate. Gossiping has become the main form of communication in human society. It has become the way we feel close to each other because it makes us feel better to see someone else feel as badly as we do. There is an old expression that says, "Misery likes company," and people who are suffering in hell want company. Fear and suffering are an important part of the dream of the planet. They are how the dream of the planet keeps us down. Using the analogy of the human mind as a computer, gossip can be compared to a computer virus. A computer virus is a piece of computer language written in the same language all the other codes are written in, but with a harmful intent. This code is inserted into the program of your computer when you least expect it, and most of the time without your awareness. After this code has been introduced, your computer doesn't work quite right, or it doesn't function at all because the codes get so mixed up with so many conflicting messages that it stops producing good results. Human gossip works exactly the same way. For example, You are beginning a new class with a new teacher, and you have looked forward to it for a long time. On the first day of class, you run into someone who took the class before who tells you, "That instructor was such a pompous jerk. He didn't know what he was talking about, and he was a pervert too, so watch out." You are immediately imprinted with the word and the emotional code the person had when saying this. But what you are not aware of is his or her motivation in telling you. This person could be angry for failing the class or simply making an assumption based on fears and prejudices. But because you have learned to ingest information like a child, some part of you believes the gossip and you go on to the class. As the teacher speaks, you feel the poison come up inside you, and you don't realize you see the teacher through the eyes of the person who gave you that gossip. Then you start talking to other people in the class about this, and they start to see the teacher in the same way, as a jerk and a pervert. You really hate the class, and soon you decide to drop out. You blame the teacher, but it is gossip that is to blame. All of this mess can be caused by one little computer virus. One little piece of misinformation can break down communication between people, causing every person it touches to become infected and contagious to others. Imagine that every single time others gossip to you, they insert a computer virus into your mind, causing you to think a little less clearly every time. Then imagine that in an effort to clean up your own confusion and get some relief from the poison, you gossip and spread these viruses to someone else. Now imagine this pattern going in a never-ending chain between all the humans on Earth. The result is a world full of humans who can only read information through circuits that are clogged with a poisonous, contagious virus. Once again, this poisonous virus is what Toltecs called the matote, the chaos of 1,000 different voices all trying to talk at once in the mind. Even worse are the black magicians or computer hackers who intentionally spread the virus. Think back to a time when you or someone you know was angry with someone else and desired revenge. In order to seek revenge, you said something to or about that person with the intention of spreading poison and making that person feel bad about him or herself. As children, we do this quite thoughtlessly, but as we grow older, we become much more calculated in our efforts to bring other people down. Then we lie to ourselves and say that person received a just punishment for their wrongdoing. When we see the world through a computer virus, it is easy to justify the cruelest behavior. What we don't see is that misuse of our word is putting us deeper into hell. For years, we have received the gossip and spells from the words of others, but also from the way we use our word with ourselves. We talk to ourselves constantly. Most of the time, we say things like, "I look fat, I look ugly. I'm getting old, I'm losing my hair. I'm stupid, I never understand anything. I will never be good enough, and I'm never going to be perfect." Do you see how we use the word against ourselves? We must begin to understand what the word is and what the word does. If you understand the first agreement, be impeccable with your word, you begin to see all the changes that can happen in your life. Changes first in the way you deal with yourself, and later in the way you deal with other people, especially those you love the most. Consider how many times you have gossiped about the person you love the most to gain the support of others for your point of view. How many times have you hooked other people's attention and spread poison about your loved one in order to make your opinion right? Your opinion is nothing but your point of view. It is not necessarily true. Your opinion comes from your beliefs, your own ego, and your own dream. We create all this poison and spread it to others just so we can feel right about our own point of view. If we adopt the first agreement and become impeccable with our word, any emotional poison will eventually be cleaned from our mind and from our communication and our personal relationships, including with our pets. Impeccability of the word will also give you immunity from anyone putting a negative spell on you. You will only receive a negative idea if your mind is fertile ground for the idea. When you become impeccable with your word, your mind is no longer fertile ground for words that come from black magic. Instead, it is fertile for the words that come from love. You can measure the impeccability of your word by your level of self-love. How much you love yourself and how you feel about yourself are directly proportionate to the quality and integrity of your word. When you are impeccable with your word, you feel good, you feel happy, and at peace. I'm going to stop for a second just to say, ladies, think right now of someone you know who's always gossiping, or someone who likes to gossip from time to time. Now think about how happy they seem after they finish gossiping, especially if you've received what they just said to you as truth. Now think about the life of that person. Is she a woman who has what she wants in life? Is she happy? Is she thriving? Is she successful? And most of the time, you're going to find that the answer to that is no. So you really have to think about when you are listening to someone who's tearing someone else down, especially if when it's someone you don't even know, and then you're forming your opinion of that person based upon someone who's gossiping, who's probably, 9 times out of 10 jealous of the woman for some reason, or the woman offended them in some way and they didn't have the confidence to stand up to that person. So instead of standing up to the person when they were offended or telling the person they were offended, they then go around gossiping and spreading little seeds of negativity about the person. So it's usually pretty easy to tell when someone is unhappy with their lives, because you'll notice they're always talking about what's going on in their friends' lives, co-workers' lives. I mean, whomever they can talk about, they'll be talking about, instead of just talking about what's going on in their own lives and focusing on that. So you just really have to be careful, and also never forget that the person who's gossiping to you is also gossiping about you. That's definitely the most important thing. Always remember that. And again, especially when it's about somebody who you don't have any way of talking to. So just like this woman is telling you all these things about that person, she's more than likely going back to that person and talking about you. So just keep that in mind. So let's see. Let me see if I'm going to continue to go on. I'll read just a little bit more because this chapter it's almost over. So let's just see. I'll see how far I can get. You can transcend the dream of hell just by making the agreement to be impeccable with your word. Right now, I am planting that seed in your mind. Whether or not the seed grows depends upon how fertile your mind is for the seeds of love. It is up to you to make this agreement with yourself. I am impeccable with my word. Nurture this seed, and as it grows in your mind, it will generate more seeds of love to replace the seeds of fear. This first agreement will change the kinds of seeds your mind is fertile for. Be impeccable with your word. This is the first agreement that you should make if you want to be free. If you want to be happy, if you want to transcend the level of existence that is hell. It is very powerful. Use the word in the correct way. Use the word to share your love. Use white magic, beginning with yourself. Tell yourself how wonderful you are, how great you are. Tell yourself how much you love yourself. Use the word to break all those teeny, tiny agreements that make you suffer. It is possible. It is possible because I did it, and I am no better than you. No, we are exactly the same. We have the same kind of brain, the same kind of bodies. We are humans. If I was able to break those agreements and create new agreements, then you can do the same. If I can be impeccable with my word, why not you? Just this one agreement can change your whole life. Impeccability of the word can lead you to personal freedom, to huge success and abundance. It can take away all fear and transform it into joy and love. Just imagine what you can create with impeccability of the word. With the impeccability of the word, you can transcend the dream of fear and live a different life. You can live in heaven in the middle of thousands of people living in hell because you are immune to that hell. You can attain the kingdom of heaven from this one agreement. Be impeccable with your word. So that's the end of the chapter of chapter 1, or the first agreement, in the book, The 4 Agreements, A Practical Guide to Self-Mastery. And I hope that you enjoyed this reading.